What does it really mean to belong? You know, in Walter White's 1926 novel, Flight, we follow the story of Mimi Daquin as she tries to answer that exact question. Her life becomes this series of escapes, a flight not just from one city to another, but from the incredibly rigid expectations of early 20th century America. We're going to watch her navigate these really complex racial and social landscapes, all to find her own place in the world.
This quote from Walt Whitman, it's really the question at the very heart of the novel. It's the question that just haunts Mimi throughout her entire journey. Amidst all the struggle and all the confusion, she keeps asking herself, what is my purpose? What is my verse going to be in this huge, powerful play of life? And that search for an answer, well, it's what drives her every single move.
So, Mimi's story kicks off with her being completely uprooted. She's forced to leave the only world she's ever known, this slow-paced, kind of romantic Creole culture of New Orleans. And the architect of this whole change? It's her ambitious stepmother, Mary, who looks at this old world and doesn't see charm. She sees stagnation.
And right here, we see this fundamental clash of worldviews. On one side, you've got Mimi's father, Gene. He loves the charm of the old ways, a kind of contentment where happiness is worth way more than dollars. But on the other side, there's Mary. She just sees New Orleans as a dead old hole, a place full of junk that needs to be replaced with nice fresh oak. For her, the only goal is to get ahead and make more money.
And here's Gene's whole philosophy, right in his own words. He's basically arguing that this relentless chase for wealth just creates more anxiety. For him, the real prize is the easygoing life. But you can probably guess, it's a losing battle against Mary's vision of so-called progress.
Now, Mimi is not just some passive observer in all this. No way. She feels this displacement, and she feels it deeply. Her outburst here just shows this fierce loyalty to her father's world and a deep, simmering resentment for Mary, the woman who's tearing her away from everything she knows. This is her very first flight, and it's one she's being forced to take.
Okay, so they move to Atlanta. And you'd think things might get better, right? Well, Mimi escapes the decay of New Orleans, only to find herself trapped in a brand new kind of prison. Actually, two of them. The first is the rigid, violent system of Southern segregation, and the second, the equally suffocating, class-obsessed world of the city's elite black society.
This is the sound of Atlanta's black high society, coming from a socialite named Mrs. Hunter. It's a world that's totally built on appearances, on these strict rules of who's in and who's out. The pressure to conform, to know the right people, it's just immense. It's a cage, but it's a cage made of propriety and judgment.
And then, bam! Just as she's trying to figure all that out, she's hit with this, the raw, brutal reality of Jim Crow. This comes from a streetcar conductor, and his words are this violent slap in the face, a reminder that outside the fancy parlors of the elite, a whole different, way more dangerous set of rules applies. There's just no escaping the daily threat of racial hatred. And look, this wasn't just about some nasty insults on a streetcar. The novel makes it really clear that the whole atmosphere in Atlanta was becoming more and more toxic. The constant, simmering racial tension was like a powder keg, and this city was getting dangerously close to a breaking point.
And the escalation into the historic Atlanta race riot of 1906, it was terrifyingly fast. It all started with fear-mongering in the press, which led to angry crowds gathering on the streets. Then a single speaker gets up and ignites the mob, and the whole city just explodes into days of horrific violence. For Mimi, this isn't some history lesson. This is her reality, and it's life-altering.
So right in the middle of all this social chaos, Mimi's hit with a deeply personal crisis that forces her hand. An unwanted pregnancy becomes the catalyst for her next flight, an escape not just from a city, but from a predetermined, loveless future that's being cooked up for her. And this is the cold, pragmatic wisdom she gets from her stepmother, Mary. The trap is so clear. Marry the guy, save your reputation, and just sacrifice your future. The solution is just another cage, a life of quiet desperation, all to please social convention.
But Mimi? She refuses. In what is maybe her most courageous move yet, she chooses uncertainty over imprisonment. She flees Atlanta, all alone, and pregnant, and heads north. This isn't just her running away. It's a profound act of choosing a difficult, unknown future over a comfortable, guaranteed misery.
And this is the moment she really grabs that poem and makes it her own. She finds it in a second-hand bookshop And by changing the pronoun from you to I, she completely transforms her flight. It's not just an escape anymore. It's a conscious act of self-determination, a declaration that she will find her place and she will contribute her own unique verse.
So her flight north lands her in Harlem, and you have to understand, she arrives at this absolutely electric moment in American history, the very beginning of the Harlem Renaissance. Suddenly, she's dropped right into a world that is just exploding with Black art, music, and intellectual energy, a world of vibrant new possibilities.
And I mean, what a world to just walk into. She's hearing the jazz of Jim Europe's orchestra, she's seeing the comedy of Williams and Walker, she's learning about the legendary Marshall Hotel, which was this hub for artists and intellectuals. It's a rich, dynamic, and unapologetically Black artistic universe.
But you know, even here, in the capital of Black culture, the old world finds a way to follow her. This little whisper comes from a gossiping character who recognizes her from Atlanta, and it's this stark reminder that you can't always outrun social judgment. Those small-town prejudices and whispers, they still exist, even in the big city.
And it's here that Mimi gets some of the most crucial advice of her entire life from her Aunt Sophie. It's this philosophy of principled resilience. It's not about fighting every single battle, and it's not about surrendering either. It's about navigating the world with integrity, bending when you have to, but never, ever breaking or losing the core of who you are.
Which brings us to Mimi's final flight. And this one is the most profound of all. Believing it'll bring her security and a future for her son, she makes the decision to pass into the white world by marrying a wealthy white man, Jimmy Forrester. But she very quickly discovers that this gilded cage, it's the most spiritually empty one of all.
So let's just be super clear on what we mean by passing here. For a light-skinned person of color like Mimi, it meant crossing the color line and living as a white person. Now, this offered access to all kinds of social and economic privileges, but it came at this immense cost of cutting ties with your community, your family, and your entire identity.
And this is the world she just married into. This is her new husband, Jimmy, just casually commenting on the morning headlines. The unthinking, everyday bigotry against Black people, against Jews, against Catholics, it's just background noise to him. But for Mimi, it's a horrifying window into the soul of her new life. And this just hammers home the intellectual void she's now living in. In her new social circle, she meets a Chinese intellectual, Wu Hirsch Chuan, who offers this sharp, insightful critique of Western hypocrisy. His perspective is such a stark contrast to the self-satisfied, small-minded views of her husband and all his friends.
And this is where Mimi lands, her final, quiet realization. She's achieved the ultimate American dream, right? Wealth, security, a husband, social standing. But in gaining it all, by erasing who she has found a world completely devoid of the culture, the spirituality, and the intellectual depth that she craves. The safety she was looking for is just a profound, suffocating emptiness.
So, Mimi's journey doesn't really give us a simple answer. She's left there, contemplating her next move, still searching. And that's the point, right? The novel turns its central question right back on us. In the face of a complex and often contradictory world, what choices do we make to define ourselves? The powerful play goes on, so what will be your verse?